We'll see if you have audio now. I think there was no audio for that entire time, and now there's volume on my phone. You would think that I've never done this before. That feels better. It looks like I've never done this before in my life, and I've done this like a couple times. Like I've done this at least 5 times before. So let's check it. I'm a mess. Sorry, I had this whole setup going on, but then there were like 80 different technical difficulties. There we go. I had a problem. One of my browsers had a virus on it. I think it was Microsoft Edge had a virus on it, so we had to in order to even open another browser, we had to completely shut down that and shut down Microsoft Edge, uninstall it, all the good stuff. And then the camera we were trying to use wasn't working to record, so I had to take down that whole setup and reinstall my normal setup, which just took a second, which meant I didn't get to finish my notes on the book. I've been working on some notes on my tablet, which I'm obsessed with. Like, you have no idea how. Like, I said this to my boyfriend the other day. I literally feel like I've leveled up as a writer through the use of this tablet, and it's great. I love it. I love it. Should I roll some more? Just a little more? Sure, that feels fine. But yeah, so I didn't get to finish my notes. They were super pretty. I was working on them. They were doing good, but it's fine. Here we are with a new book. I read Stan Lee's Alliances, which I also had things I wanted to look up. Not like a ton of things I wanted to look up. Really, I had one thing I wanted to look up, okay? And I didn't get to look that up. But I read Stan Lee's Alliances, and I read it because A, it sounded like great, and B, because I was under the impression that there was not going to be a sequel to it, because obviously it was made with him. He was a major hand in the writing of the book, and he had passed, I think he passed just before the book had been released. And I just thought that this was going to be a standalone novel. After reading it, it's definitely not. It's apparently supposed to be an adult for adults. I don't know what these articles are saying. I'm trying to talk, and I can't talk and read at the same time. I'm a mess. But I had read it with the understanding that there would not be a sequel, which after reading it, there's it was setting up a sequel for sure. But let's actually just get into the book. First of all, before I get into anything else, I want to describe what this book is. So it's definitely, if you're into all of the Marvel movies, it's not that. It's not as grandiose as those, at least not yet, not so far. More than anything right now, it's very human, and it's how the book interacts with its main character and just him and the characters emotionally. It's way more human than I've experienced with Marvel's, because as far as I remember, like I said in the past, in the last thing I did, that was Stan Lee and superhero and Marvel. I don't have a huge experience with Marvel comics and whatnot, but from the experience that I do have, they are just very massive, and the focus of them is the characters, but the characters are different. They're not average people. They're not you and me, and there's something that feels like they're separate from us. Like, if I were to run into Peter Parker on the street, he sees the world very different than us. This is very different in the sense that even when we get into the sci-fi aspects of it, the characters are really more just trying to focus in on their own lives. They're just doing things in their own life. It's not like they're going out there to solve everyone's problems. They want to help everyone. It's really just them trying to figure out how this exists in their own existence and how it helps in their own existence. So that's that. Also, it's like, that's why I was so shocked when I saw like a random article that said it's Stanley's first book for adults. This is definitely a YA book. This is a young adult book. If you feel like the genres are different, I respect that. But YA is also more than likely going to be right next to the kids section in any library. It's a YA book for sure. But let's get into this. So the book starts out, we have two main characters, really. You have Nia, or actually, before even that starts, you do get this introduction by Stanley. It is him speaking, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost cried. It was just to have someone of that stature talking about how this book isn't about him. This book is about all of us connecting for creativity, and I almost cried. It was so sweet. I loved it. So I'm getting to that point of like adulthood where I don't even really care about the book. I just want to read the author's introductions. I should read an autobiography. That's what I need to do, really, is read an autobiography. But so you have this introduction by Stanley, and then you are introduced to this character, Nia. She is this girl who is trapped away from the world. She's never allowed to leave her house. She has her bedroom, and she has this massive classroom. It's just for her. It's beyond technology. It's beyond super awesome, hyped up technology. That's what this classroom is. Like, she's able to pull information from any time period. They're able to pull video footage from anywhere on the internet. It's like super duper uber schnoober high tech. So that's Nia. And like her dad, it's just her dad. Her dad is the one that is keeping her in this area. Then you have Cameron. Cameron is a YouTuber. It's a try and true, trying to be a YouTuber. I relate. He's a nerd. He's kind of techie. He's also likes boats. He goes off on this boat trying to figure out the mystery of Lake Erie, because he thinks like the Lake Erie is even crazier than the Bermuda Triangle, mostly because his father vanished like a decade ago, and he was last seen going out to Lake Erie, and so he's like, Lake Erie is the new Bermuda Triangle. So Cameron's out there, and he wants to be able to be like this super like sleuth with water and be the greatest YouTuber and get views that way. So he's out one day, out in the water with this tech gear he's made himself to try and help him navigate the area, and his little dinky boat with a live streaming camera to be like, hey, so he can communicate with the people. He is out on the lake and gets trapped in this intense storm. It's throwing him everywhere. There's lightning everywhere, and he gets struck by lightning live on video. But he doesn't die. So, as we all know with YouTube, something crazy like that happens on the live stream, you don't die. Now he's like super duper famous. Literally, it says in the book that he ended up doing he did one interview after the accident and got 6 figures for it. And so he's living chill, he's living happy. But the problem is, he's like, they're rich and they're well off. They don't need it's just his mom now because his dad disappeared. Don't need her to work ever again. But he came back different from that whole thing. He has to wear he has a very bad limp because like some nerves in his foot were damaged. He has a giant scar on his face, and most importantly, he has the ability to actually interact with electronics. I think they call it like I don't know, some form of, it's like telekinesis, like being able to read minds, but you can read everything that's going on throughout any technological device. If it has software in it, he can communicate with it, and he describes it as actually almost being able to speak with it, like he's just having a conversation with the devices around his house. And it's overwhelming for him. Because he lives in a modern style world, everyone has a device on them at all times, and that's just a lot for him to go through. So he decides he's done with that. He's just gonna live in the basement and just basically just rot in there. But while he's in the basement, he's on his computer playing computer games. And what he can do is he can essentially just rework the entire game and remake it the entire time. Like, he'll be playing a first-person shooter and just warp the world around his opponents, create like cartoon characters into the game to distract them, like build weapons out of thin air. So he's never been defeated in a game, and it's gotten boring to him. This is just his life now, is playing 3 different games at once and creatively manipulating and slaughtering everyone in all 3 at once. But then he gets into this one game, and some chick comes up to him, and he's like, ugh, get out the way. And she kills him. This is the first time he's ever been killed. He turns off his other games, focuses on this one, respawns, she kills him again. And he's like, what is going on? He tries to kill her, and she just respawns right again. She's like, oh, you did so well. Good for you. And they just start fighting each other for a while because they're very equally matched, which is confusing to him because, again, he has like super technological abilities. So they're fighting each other. Then they start fighting with each other to just conquer this entire land. Guess who it is? It's Nia. And so they're interacting. They start to build a bond. And it's like most of this book, honestly, most of this book is just watching them build a bond, which I don't mind. But you would get like these short glimpses into... You would get these short glimpses into the actual sci-fi world and into the other aspects of the world. Because soon you actually also start to realize that there's like an alien roaming around trying to find Nia and her dad and Cameron. And it would just pop in and out of that. And it does, those like feel a little off-putting until suddenly everything in the world just starts to feel really whole. And in the story, everything starts to mesh really well together. So they're bonding. He has to go back to school. He decides he's going to have a 3D printer at some lab make him his foot prosthetic that he can use so he can walk normally. And he makes an AR lens, a lens, like a contact lens, that can project like augmented reality so he can play video games and stuff like that when he's in classrooms. And he can just do electronic. It's like if you had Google Lens, if Google Lens was a contact lens, but like 30 times more advanced, that's what he had in his eye all day. So they're doing that. He goes back to school. He sees this kid who's listening to some super duper like racist and homophobic and just terrible, one of those kinds of podcasts. This guy, because he can still contact and listen to everyone's technology, he sees his kids listening to this podcast. Kid leaves and beats up another kid who is wearing a turban because the guy on the podcast was saying that they're carrying disease. So Cameron records a video of that guy, like, because everyone around is recording video. He takes all of their footage, snips into a video, posts it online, and then has the kid that was doing all the punching, he blew up his phone in his pocket. He's like, maybe you'll think of that before you try and be terrible again. And after all of this is happening, he sees someone. He sees Nia just kind of hanging out in the background. He goes to try and find her. She's gone. And for a while, it becomes like this point where he's like hanging out somewhere, and then she just vanishes. And he'll see her, and then she leaves. Until they finally actually plan a date. At this point, you should also know that Cameron has a friend, Wako, who has been basically just... Honestly, Wako isn't super important, aside from the fact that when things start getting real intense, Wako is basically the sidekick. And that's really all you need to know about him. So Cameron and her actually plan a date, and they hang out, but again, he goes, does something, she's gone. And that's basically how their relationship is for a while. Then they get to a point where continuing, like, I remember the whole, like, this guy was being racist, we're gonna out him. They continue that kind of thing, and they call it, like, cosmic justice. And so now they're ruining the career of the guy who made the podcast in the first place. And that's kind of the goal. Then they get to a point where they realize that there is a program that is basically filtering out information under all, like, social media, like the entirety of the internet. It's filtering the information that we receive to only show us the most biased stuff, and they oust that as well. They get caught by the people that had been making that like site and who had been working on that program. They kidnapped Cameron, and we realize that that Cameron is now caught in by the daughter of his disappeared father's, like, old work buddy. Again, that also doesn't really have much of a, like, hold on the story. But more than anything else is when Nia leaves and she realizes that Cameron's gone, she goes back to her house and she wants to try and figure out a way to help him, but her dad realizes that she's left. And so he shuts down, he's like, go to your room, and he shuts down her entire ability to leave, to have access to the internet whatsoever. Before he does that, she leaves a message for Cameron saying, he's going to hurt me, here are my coordinates. Cameron escapes from the, like, evil, like, underground internet hackers, and he goes trying to figure out what happened to her because she's not messaging him back at all. And he finds the message. The coordinates are in the middle of Lake Erie. So he takes Wako and they go out. There's a storm going. They're like, oh my God, we're going to die, but we can't go without her. And they end up going. They keep going through the storm, and suddenly the storm ends. And they realize that they are in, like, they can see the storm through what looks like a tunnel, but now they're in this other world. There they find this Barry, who is known amongst the neighborhood to be the crazy old guy. But really, Barry's like, I'm an alien from another planet that's similar to yours. I have a species that's very similar to yours, but my species has been wiped out. My species has been wiped out by some overlords. I think that's what happened. His species was wiped out by some overlords, and they killed my daughter Nia. And they're like, but you're talking crazy. I gotta go save her. Cameron goes, and he's like, come, Nia. And he feels this electrical shock similar to the lightning bolt that went through him the first time, and then nothing. And he's like, no, that's not the real Nia. This is like a computer version of Nia that I created. I tricked the overlords that killed my species into letting me create this Nia, but I used this Nia to kill them. Now one of their species is trying to kill me, but I just want her to, like, live, feel like she's human, be happy as in life. And now she's out into the world, but she's so much energy, she's so much just electrical energy that it's going to destroy the world. And that's exactly what she does. She feels free, she's happy, she's roaming around, she gets to explore the entire world, but everywhere she goes, she's destroying electrical goods. She is sending, like, cars on rampages because people think they're alive now. And now that she knows everywhere she goes, she's destroying and she's causing hurt, she just feels more alone than anything else. That's when, like, the alien chick that was hunting her down, she's like, ooh, I can do this. And so she gets into Disney villain mode. It's like, oh, honey, you feel alone. I can make you feel not alone. If we do this thing where we connect all of the minds of all of the humans and make us one hive mind, then they'll never feel alone. Which she knows Nia can do, because that's what they did to her. That's how Nia killed the overlords, is to connect them with one hive mind. But Nia is like, oh, that's great. Then no one would ever feel lonely again. Cameron would love it if no one ever had to feel lonely again. But this is going to, like, kill all of humanity. So Cameron and Nia's dad, Barry, are all just trying to work hard to try and stop it. And towards the end, it's really just Cameron using his technological abilities to be able to get to a place where he and Nia can talk. And he tells her, like, I love you. And they're able to shut down the entire. They're able to bring her to a point where she is just like has in a state in his head. And then they realize that the alien, because what she does throughout the entire thing is she kind of just hops into different bodies. Like she she starts off as her normal form, then she merges herself with a cat, and then she leaves the body of the cat and merges into an old man, and then merges into a girl, and then merges into Cameron's therapist. And he realized that there's a lot of technology in what she's doing, and so they rip her apart piece by piece using his his mental electronic abilities, and they kill her that way. Then at the end, but they realized that she'd sent a message to the rest of her species when she thought she was winning, and so now they're coming, and then there's going to be a war. And that's really just where it ended. So, overview: Cameron is still like a super tech abilities guy. Nia is just a computer program that's sentient and super duper strong, able to like destroy entire civilizations if she would like to. Almost destroyed Earth, but she is still not like a physical being, and like the state of her being in Cameron's head was only temporary. So now she's just once again bouncing around in like this internet state that his dad had designed before he was born. He had this whole internet empire, then it crumbled, and then he disappeared. So they're in like dad's old empire. It's, for the most part, a lot of the details that kind of feel like I'm throwing them out, I feel like I'm just throwing out there, aren't going to be important until more books come out. Really, what happened in the story is you need to know Cameron is super tech guy. Nia is a computer program that they're in love, and they destroyed this alien woman that was coming after them to get revenge on Nia's dad for killing her species after she killed his species. And that's really what's important to the story. I will say, because the big twist of the story is that like Nia is not a physical, real human being. He was seeing her and he was interacting with her, and it felt so real, but she was never there at all. At any point in time, she was never there. It was all just AR, augmented reality, and he fell for it. But I will say, that was reading it. It was never like an, oh my god, mind blown, this is like a crazy thing that I'm learning about from this book. It honestly felt kind of like more of an, oh, sure, whatever. Because there was no point in which, like, they would say, hey, he like always wants to like hold her hand, and he wants to hug her and kiss her and stuff like that. That makes sense for someone. This is the first girl he's ever like been on a date with, first girl he's ever like potentially been able to kiss. That makes sense for someone in that like kind of social area. But when they had this entire like their date that they went on, they were just walking through a park and they were walking around together a lot, and it was never explicitly said, I'll admit, I don't believe it was ever explicitly said, hey, like, we've never even, like, brushed shoulders. But because it was never explicitly said that, like, they never said that they brushed shoulders, but because it was never explicitly said that they didn't, that's kind of the assumption, because that's what happens when you're walking and you're talking with someone. You're going to stand, like, you're not going to stand with, like, 5 feet between you two, and you're going to, like, bump into each other, brush shoulders, stuff like that. And just because it was not explicitly said that they didn't, that's just kind of the assumption I made, because that's what life is like. And so being told later that she was just a computer program that they never touched ever, I'm like, oh, well then sure, I guess they never brushed shoulders, or her hair never hit him in the face during a windy day, something like that. Sure. And it was more of something like, I just kind of gave the benefit of the doubt. I just kind of like went along with it, as opposed to me feeling like that's what the story I was being told the entire time. And that's really the issue I had with the twist of it, is because it didn't feel like it didn't feel like that was the story I was being told the entire time. It felt like this is just something that was kind of just tossed out there, and I just have to accept it now. But yeah, so that was the major thing. Also, if you want to hear like all of my theorizing, because this is a theorizing analysis channel, if you want to see all of that live, then follow me on GoodReads. That's linked like if you already follow me on Instagram, that's linked in my Instagram bio. It's usually linked in my videos, but this video was being super weird today, so it wouldn't let me do that. But like, I would go through and just be like, oh my God, like this happened. Like, I ended up towards the beginning of the book, like theorizing, okay, so like Cameron's dad / probably also Nia's dad is totally the inventor guy that the alien's trying to kill. I was half right. It was Nia's dad, but I felt more like it was totally Cameron's dad, because the fact that they emphasizing the fact that he disappeared tells me that he's totally alive somewhere. Because he's disappeared and he's not been confirmed dead, or no one's actually believed him to be dead so far, tells me that he's 100% still alive, without a doubt. But that was stuff I was doing. I also assumed that one of them was like Cameron's stepmom or aunt or something. I get some pretty consistent comments down in my GoodReads about how I'm feeling about the books I'm going through. But yeah, in the book, like I said earlier, I know I mentioned like you have all these like weird sci-fi bits. Like, you get excerpts of this alien chick as she's going from body to body trying to figure out a plan so she can kill the inventor, and you get these bits from the like people who are in that underground like tech group that's low-key controlling all of our internet. You get bits of them as well, and those kind of feel out of place, and then suddenly you get to the point where they are now kidnapping Cameron, and now she is the alien saving Cameron so he can lead her to Nia. And all of that is just, suddenly it's all just one story. All of it doesn't feel like it makes sense, because I knew that these things were all going to interweave together, but now it feels like I'm seeing the whole picture, when suddenly, like, probably half of the book, last third or fourth of the book, then it's like, oh my God, all of it's, now we're seeing everything together as opposed to seeing them like separate. The puzzle pieces fit now. But that's my impression of the book. I do appreciate it. I did like it, and I would definitely read the second book if there's a second one that comes out. Yeah, I wouldn't say. I'm kind of torn in between, because I'm also going to plan on rating it on GoodReads and whatnot. I'm torn, though, in between calling it one of my favorite books. Like, it's a really good book, I will say. And I definitely do think people should read it. Like, I would give it 5 stars for sure. But it didn't move me. And it didn't, pull all of my brain whirls and make my brain whir the way that Lost Stars did. It didn't make me think and feel the way Lost Stars did. I did feel a lot of sympathy for the characters. The characters did feel very real, but just not as multi-dimensional as like Sienna Rhee did to me. But it's still a really good book, and I still really think people should read it. It's just not like I would like this book is coming with me, this book is getting buried with me level of book, which is totally okay, because I already have plenty of those, and we'll get to them soon enough. For right now, I will tell you, though, what the next book that I'm going to read is going to be, and that, at the moment, is planned to be the next book in the Caverns and Creatures Critical Failures series. I read the first one a while back, like probably a month or so ago. I read the first one then, and we can go ahead check that out now. And then after that video, you can let me know if you want to keep seeing more of those books, or if you want me to just hold off on them for a little bit. We'll see. I have a feeling there's like 8 of them, so got a long way to go. But until next time, valedictions, friends.